Good afternoon. Welcome to IIT Gandhinaga's Indian Knowledge Systems course. And today we have the great pleasure of listening to Śatāvadhānī Dr. Ganesh, a second talk on Indian aesthetics, Indian poetics, Indian literature. I think all these three areas are inseparable and intertwined in his exposure of this field. Yesterday, he built at a gentle pace the foundations of Indian aesthetics and what the aesthetic experience is supposed to mean and how it is created, how it is conveyed. And I believe today perhaps we will be exploring more towards the side of literature and language, and also the pan-Indianness of this phenomenon, as he wrote in his abstract, and you have far more details on our website, iks.iitgn.ac.in. As Dr. Ganesh wrote, Indian literary theory, codified in Sanskrit initially, is a pan-Indian science that commands worldwide significance. So I believe we're going to hear more about this. And I remind our listeners that we will close, as yesterday, the session at 4 o'clock. You're most welcome to record your questions either in the chat box for the Google Meet or as comments on YouTube. And tomorrow, Thursday, we will have an entire session dedicated to questions, answers, and interaction with Dr. Ganesh, who is a wonderful interlocutor and improviser. This is what his title of Śatāvadhānī testifies to. And for those of you who do not know the meaning of this word, please consult his profile on our website. Thank you very much, Dr. Ganesh. We are listening to you.
Thank you, Professor Vishalji. Thanks a lot. But also a very good afternoon to one and all. In the last session, we were discussing about some of the basic concepts of Indian aesthetics, like rasa, dhvani, auchitya, and vakrata. Bhava. Bhava is personal emotion, and when it is sublimated, it becomes rasa. That is, individual emotions becoming universal and certainly becoming enjoyable. At the level of individual emotions, we have likes and dislikes. While they become universal, they lose the tinge of likes and dislikes, and they become entirely relishable. In Sanskrit, we have three words for different experiences. If the experiences are comfortable, enjoyable, they are called sukha. If they are discomforting, they are called dukkha. And if they are beyond such frames, they are called ananda. Ananda is something different from sukha and dukkha, because sukha and dukkha are personal, while ananda is universal. And bhavas are belonging to the world of sukha and dukkha. But rasa is essentially ananda. And that's why we can enjoy tragedy, we can enjoy horror, we can enjoy loathsome. Every such emotions will become enjoyable once they transcend the limits of selfishness, once they transcend the boundaries of likes and dislikes. This is what I discussed about bhava and rasa. The beauty of Sanskrit is manifolded. The word bhava has come from the word bhava. Bhava means the mundane world. The emotions which are adhering to the mundane world of likes and dislikes, they are called bhava. When they are relishable in any form, whether they are tragic or comic or loathsome or heroic or lovable or whatsoever, then they become enjoyable, and that is why they are called as rasa. Rasanat rasaha, rasyante iti rasaha. So they are relished, and the real relishment itself is rasa. In both the ways, the etymologies have been given. And I also told that this way of relishment is only possible when they are suggested. When emotions are suggested, they become enjoyable, as direct communication with respect to emotions or experiences are impossible. Experiences can only be suggested, and there comes the concept of dhvani or suggestion. That is called Vyanjana Vyapara. Language has three levels of communication, means that language has three levels of meaning. The one, the designated as per the dictionary, very direct and already established. Then we have the implied, the worldly sense, the colloquial and the informal conversational meaning. And then the third one, the suggested and the aesthetic meaning, and that is called Vyanjana. And so emotions, when they are suggested and received in a impersonal way without involving and yet being involved, that becomes rasa. And for that, we need a beautiful expression. Expression should be suggestive, and that suggestion should be proper, and then it will be relished. So, expression of such sort is called vakrata or vakrokti, and that which yields suggestion is the real vakrata. And then the suggestion is called dhvani in Indian aesthetics. And then dhvani should be agreeable and acceptable. Not all suggestions are enjoyable or accommodatable. And thus comes the concept of auchitya. Uchitasya bhavaha auchityam, that which is connected with propriety. And then we have rasa. So, to sum up, we have the four concepts: vakrata, dhvani, auchitya, and rasa. These four become the four pillars of Indian aesthetics. This much I had told in the last session, and now we shall come forward, we shall move further. Indian aesthetics is best suited for analyzing any form of art, because many people think it is poetics means only connected with poetry, whether it is prose or verse or drama or song or whatsoever, and hence they restrict that Indian aesthetics is mainly connected with poetry and poets. But it is a misnomer. It's not complete. We have all concepts which can be beautifully and effectively applied to all forms of art, whether they are classical arts, folk arts, modern arts, or even contemporary arts. Not only the arts belonging to Indian subcontinent, even the art forms belonging to different parts of world, different continents, different regions, and different countries. And then we have yet another thing, that is different times. They are applicable to various spatio-temporal frames, and hence we have any literature or any dance or any theater or any music, any painting, any sculpture belonging to any part of the world at any time. This is how they have transcended the barriers or the boundaries of space and time. I don't want to go into the details because it's a very elaborate thing. It's not a laborious one, but a very elaborate treatment is needed to establish it. I've already done elsewhere, and I need not ponder over these things. But this much I can say: Indian aesthetics is universal both in terms of space and time, both in terms of different forms of art and different aspects of appeal. Then they are also applicable to both microscopic and macroscopic art forms. It means Indian aesthetics can efficiently analyze even a small poem of 2 lines, hardly 32 syllables, and it can also analyze efficiently and successfully a very big epic like Mahabharata. It can be comfortable in analyzing a bit of a song and also a big performance. It can analyze a piece of movement, and at the same time, it can analyze the beauties of a whole epic drama. In that sense, Indian aesthetics is self-sufficient. This is what I want to first emphasize. And then it has a pan-Indian appeal. Of course, when it is universal, it has to be so. Here we have some examples. I have already sent some material, and there also I have mentioned all these things. So I will not be going into the details. Just here and there, I will touch upon few points. Every nook and corner of India contributed towards Indian aesthetics. Not at one time. across the cross-section of so many centuries, starting from Bharata. By any conservative estimate, the Nāṭya-śāstra would at least go to 4th century BC. And then the present form of Nāṭya-śāstra perhaps would have been structured before 2000 years. And thus, from that time onwards, constantly various authors have been codifying the concepts, reiterating that, re-establishing, correcting, contrasting, confronting, and then coming to agreeable solutions. Like that, it's a wonderful evolution. It has happened over a millennium. Here, we have traditions from Kashmir, Bhamaha, Rudrata, Udbhata, Anandavardhana, Abhinavagupta, Kuntaka, and many more. And from southern India, like Dandian from Kanchi, or Śāradā again from Kanchi, or Ajitasena from Karnataka, or Sayanacharya from Karnataka, or Vemabhupala from Andhra, or Gopendra Bhupala again from Andhra, an Andhraite like Jagannatha migrating to Uttar Pradesh and settling there, or even Uttungodaya or Ramapanivada from Kerala, or Vishwanatha from Utkala, that is Orissa, Hemachandra, Ramachandra, Gunachandra from Gujarat, and then even writers belonging to Madhya Pradesh like Bhoja, Dhananjaya, Dhanika from Uttar Pradesh, whether it is Jagannatha or Bhanudatta, and many more. And from Bengal, Rupa Goswami, Madhusudan Saraswati, Kavikarnapura, like that, every nook and corner of India has contributed towards the development of this particular subject. And this is not in 1 century. Throughout the 2 millennia, we have these details available. Thank God. We are so fortunate to know that this diversity has contributed towards the integrity of Indian aesthetics. And also, they belong to various philosophical systems, various religious beliefs, and various social strata. For example, Hamaha perhaps was a Buddhist, and people who are not Buddhist, like Abhinavagupta, Anandavardhana, Kshemendra, were eminent scholars in Buddhism, and they wrote profusely on Buddhism without any biases. It's a very unique thing. And also, people belonging to Jainism, Hemachandra, his students Ramachandra, Gunachandra, and then Sagaranandi, Namisadhu, like that, a host of Jains have contributed great lot. That is Ajitasena. All other people belonging to the Jainism have contributed. So from Sanatana Dharma, we have many. And then again, some of them are devotees of Vishnu, whether it is Anandavardhana, for that matter, or Jagannatha Panditaraja. But some people are devoted to Shiva. Abhinavagupta himself is a great example. Or Bhattanayaka, another example like that. And at the same time, some are devoted to Shakti, Mamata, for that matter. Like that, many scholars belonging to different schools of beliefs have contributed. Not only that, many philosophical schools have contributed. Bhamaha was a logician. Mahibabhatta was scrupulously erudite, and his erudition in logic is phenomenal, and he is a arch opponent of Dhani, and he is a logician, Nayayika. And another scholar by name Bhattanayaka was belonged to the school of Purvamimamsa. So also Dhananjaya. And Bhojaraja belonged to the school of Shaivagama and Sankhya. And Bhattanayaka's yet another approach is from the school of Sankhya. And Shabdadvaitavadins, grammarians, including Anandavardhana. And of course, Vedantins are there. And in the Vedanta, Anandavardhana perhaps is a pure Vedanti, while Abhinavagupta is a declared Pratyabhijna Shaiva Vedantin. And his student, Kshemendra, earlier a Shaivite and later a Vaishnavite, was an open-minded person who could elucidate different features of aesthetics without any sectarian bias. Hemachandra, though was a Jain scholar, a great Jain Muni, he reads as per the tenets of Vedanta. His exposition of rasa is not at all colored by Jainism, while his students Ramachandra and Gunachandra, they have inputs from Jainism, while their master is not so. Like that, it is a very pluralistic society, pluralistic school, and that became an integrated system in coming out with an agreeable concept of rasa, dhvani, auchitya, and vakrata. And I need not discuss more about this because we all know we need not be defensive in these things. But unfortunately, the situations are so bad, even a sane mind is compelled to become defensive and come out with reasons after reasons, evidences after evidences. Everything I have written in my paper. And every subject has contributed towards the development of Indian aesthetics. It is perhaps one of the youngest Shastras, and that's why Vyakarana, grammar, Vedanta, that is the pinnacle of Indian philosophy, Nyaya, logic, Sankhya, the school of realism, Jainism, Buddhism, Shaiva, system of philosophy. Every philosophy has contributed, and even Vaishnava. The concept of bhakti and bhakti rasa, they have a great bearing on Indian aesthetics, and they have been developed by the Bengal school of Vaishnavism mainly, and even people from Maharashtra like Bopadeva and Hemadri, they too have contributed. Like that, every region, every sect, and every philosophy, and of every type have been active in enriching this subject. Now, coming back to the basic concepts, an artist needs basically three things. He should be qualified three ways. First of all, he or she should be imaginative, and this power of imagination is called pratibha. Pratibha means the flash that occurs again and again. Prati, again and again, bha, brilliance, light, flash. And then this is innate imaginative power. This cannot be taught and this cannot be imbibed. It is by birth, by approach, by tendency, by feel they'll be having. And then Vyutpatti. Vyutpatti is nothing but erudition. Erudition in various aspects of that specified art. If that person is going to become a musician, in that way, if the person is going to become a sculptor in the same way, like that, according to their chosen field of expression, erudition comes to picture. But it is not a narrow thing. When you look into works of Kshemendra, Rajashekara, and many others, Amarchandra Suri, they have written treatises on making of a poet, or treatises based on the training of a poet, how a poet has to be trained. It's a very big section. Means no artist should be irresponsible. Just claiming that I have imaginative power, I can use my pen as I wish. It is wrong. I should be educated. So this responsibility of acquiring qualification is very important. Kshemendra in his Kavikanta enlists 100 topics, 100 systems of learning where a poet should be well informed. Like that, it has become a custom and practice, and nobody used to violate these things. And then, more than all these things, rigorous practice is also needed. Abhyasa, rigorous practice, constantly enriching his prowess, her prowess, so that expressions become very effective and the pen becomes facile. These are the features which are part of Indian aesthetics. Abhishiksha, training of a poet. This is yet another chapter. And coming back to the poem in general, the style or diction, it plays a main role, an important role. Style is man, style is also woman, we know. Style is person, we can say, in a neutral way. There, the schools of Guna, Riti, and Marga, they have contributed a lot. Starting from the sound and texture of syllables, phonemes, words, and sentences, up to the complete work, we have these stylistics coming into picture. And then we have Alankara. Alankara means imagery. Imagery is of two kinds. One is imagery of sense and other is the imagery of sound. Figures of sound and figures of sense. Figures of sound means Shabda Alankara, while figures of sense means Artha Alankara. If different types of alliterations are employed, it becomes Shabda Alankara. If different types of similes, metaphors, and other things are brought in, they become Artha Alankara. Rabindranath Tagore, in one of his essays, beautifully writes, poet, while using language for his expression, the medium, the audio medium should become visual, and that can happen only when you have figures of speech. Through figures of speech, you can bring in the concept of visualization, and thus figures of sound, they belong to the audio realm, while the figures of sense, they belong to the visual treat. Both are important, and we all know, depending upon the medium, if the artist can transcend that medium and create the effect of the other medium, then his or her art would be certainly better, would be certainly enriching. And then so we have the concept of Alankara coming into vogue, and I'm happy to say that Indian aesthetics has keenly evolved hundreds and hundreds of Alankara. Any beautiful expression of sense is an Alankara, Artha Alankara. But Indian aesthetics has taken a lot of pain to analyze and define it. Here comes the intelligence into picture. We have so many scholars, so many logicians, so many grammarians, and so many philosophers. They have keenly analyzed every expression and how these expressions are different. In that way, they have spared no pain in analyzing. When a sentence is appealing, they are searching what for, how come they are appealing, why they are appealing, and how they are appealing. While doing so, they have come up with many alankara. Of course, all these expressions are embedded in the master poets' writings, but they have to be defined properly so that they can be perpetuated. It is very similar to scientific exposition. For example, physics, it tries to describe matter and its properties, dynamics, statics, and whatnot. So also chemistry, it deals with the chemical properties of matter. In that way, it will be defined and analyzed. You should see modern literature and modern aesthetics, modern poetics is not bothered about these intrinsic abilities of art medium and expression, and they are just lost in social, economic, political, anthropological, and other non-literary, non-artistic things. If every literature department becomes another department of sociology or psychology or anthropology, what for those departments should work? In that way, the sovereign nature of aesthetics is challenged by the modern approach. But classical Indian approach is never moving towards that. In that way, Indian aesthetics has been constantly restoring its sovereign nature, independence, free thinking. Though it has been enriched by many systems of philosophy, it has not become slave to any one system of philosophy. In the West, aesthetics has been always a second fiddle to philosophy, but in India it is not so. Philosophy is entirely different, and aesthetics is another channel by itself. But it doesn't mean they are in opposition with each other and they are disconnected. They have maintained safe territories and they know how to operate. In that way, they have maintained the organic completion. At the same time, independence has been granted. This is how we have integration in diversity. Then, in Indian aesthetics, it focuses completely on art, I told. In that sense, any person belonging to any race or any sect or any country can safely use Indian aesthetics because it is not tarnished by these isms. It is not tarnished by any non-literary or non-artistic aspects, and it is crystal pure and crystal clear. And the other thing is, Indian aesthetics, I told, it is equally feasible in analyzing the small and the big, microscopic and macroscopic features of art, alankara, arthalankara, this aspect usually takes care of analyzing the microscopic nature, means small piece of art, whether it is poetry or painting or music or whatsoever. I'll be taking poetry as an example for my field is more akin to this, and my interest and my pursuits are more connected with poetry. I shall take two examples from Khalil Gibran just to show how Indian aesthetics is applicable to a Middle East Asian poet writing in English in 20th century, and yet these verses can be analyzed from the perspective of Indian aesthetic efficiently. One small poem. I have learned silence from the talkative, toleration from the intolerant, and kindness from the unkind, yet strange. I am ungrateful to these teachers. This is what he says. I shall repeat. I have learned silence from the talkative, toleration from the intolerant, and kindness from the unkind. Yet strange, I am ungrateful to these teachers. This expression, which has an apparent contradiction, and this figure of speech is called virodhabhasa. It looks like contradiction, but it is apparent. This way, expression is made more efficient. Indian aesthetics will not stop with identifying the figure of speech which is embedded there. It tries to show how effective it is, how beautiful it is. I shall take an example from a Sanskrit verse. Rama lamenting for Sita. When he is separated from Sita as she was abducted by Ravana, he says, Haro naro pitah kanthe maya vishlesha bhiruna idani mavayor madhye sarit sagar parvata. When we were in a deep embrace, I used to think even a garland is coming in between us. So I used to remove it and have a complete hug with Sita. But alas, now when she is there in the island of Lanka, I am on the other shore. How distant is that gap, and how big is that gap? Now we have the rivers, the mountains, and even the mighty ocean. All are coming in our way. Here again, the contrast, Vishama Alankara. The contrast in what way? Earlier it was so, and now it is so. This way of by showing contrast, we can imagine how deep was the love between Rama and Sita. They were not even tolerating a tender, fragrant garland coming in between them. A true embellishment and an udipana vibhava and a stimulant, an ambience which creates a lot of stimulation to have love. Even such a thing is becoming a disturbance. That's what the feeling of Rama was, and now it is so. This way, a figure of speech is indirectly suggesting the love of Rama, the love between Rama and Sita. And another example from Khalil Gibran. A root is a flower that disdains fame. A root is a flower that disdains fame. What a beautiful sentence it is. How beautifully it suggests that people who are not willing to be in limelight, they become the pillars of support and foundation for bigger establishment. Flower has lot of exhibitionism, while root is devoid of that, is averse to it. All this has been suggested through this contrast, and this figure of speech is called Vyatireka in Indian aesthetics. And here you can see it is not limiting itself to that. Root is certainly better than flower. With that itself, it is not stopping. It will go and explain and suggest the human nature also. Some people, like flowers, they parade all their laurels, all their name, fame everywhere. But very few people who chose to be so, who go deep and who become supportive and nourishing. A root nourishes the freshness of flower by merging itself in mud and manure. This way, it suggests the human nature also. This aspect is called aprastuta prashamsa. means indirect way of, allegorical way of suggesting human nature and worldly wisdom. This way, Vyatireka Alankara, leading to yet another Alankara, yet another figure of speech, and this is called Alankara Dhvani in Indian aesthetics. Like that it goes. The ripples of meaning, they go on continuously like the reverberating sound of a ringing bell. This is how, even in pieces, even in parts, beauty can be realized, and that's how Indian aesthetics comes to help. And English perhaps is not that much suited for beautiful wordplay and alliterations when compared to Sanskrit, and even from the domain of meters. In Sanskrit, the meters are so melodious in nature, they accommodate so much of verbal melody, and there come the figures of sound, Arthalankara, Shabdalankara. You just take the example of Gita Govinda, it will be sufficient. Lalita Lavanga Lata Parishila Komala Malaya Samire. You see how many times the sounds La, Ka, all these tender sounds have been repeating. Lalita Lavanga Lata Parishila Komala Malaya Samire. Without even translating, people would feel that something tender, something romantic, and something very pleasant is going on. At the same time, you take an example from Vedi Samhara. Chanchat bhuja bhramita chanda gada bhighata sanchurnitoru yugalasya suyodhanasya styana vanadha gharashonita shonapanihi uttam saishyati kachanstava devi bhimaha. Those who are not even initiated into Sanskrit can infer that something powerful, something roaring, and something agitated is happening. And here Bhima is reiterating his pledge, and he is supporting Draupadi and consoling her that I will take care of your pledge. So this way, the images of sound, how they come to help. Here we have Guna, Riti. Earlier I told Lalita Lavanga Lata Parishilana. It is Komala or Upanagarika Varnavritti. And now it has become Parusha, harsh. Like that, here we can also understand nothing is wrong in art when it is framed properly. When it is employed in the proper situation, even the jarring sounds will become effects in the situations of heroism, in the situations of fury, in the situations of horror. At the same time, tender words, sweet words, they become a defect in such demanding situations, and vice versa. Now, we shall look into the macroscopic nature. For that, Bharata himself is the great fountainhead. In the Nāṭya-śāstra, we have three concepts which are connected to the structure of a play, a complete play. Sandhi, Artha Prakriti, and Avastha. Sandhis are the concepts which are connected to different situations. Artha Prakritis are connected to the storyline, and Avasthas are connected to development of the character. All the three are not separate. They are interwoven, and they are mixed together, and they are twisted together. But for the sake of analysis, we have to separate them. Again, I shall repeat. Sandhi and Samjanga connected with the situations. We need different engaging situations which are very, very important from the perspective of emotions. We need emotive situations. There come the action, reaction, confrontation, confusion, and execution. The five sandhis: action, mukha; reaction, pratimukha; confrontation, garbha; confusion, avamarsa; and then conclusion, nirvahana. These five aspects are needed. Even this concept can be applied to Shakespearean play or even contemporary film. Any successful art form in a thematic manner will certainly have these features. And then from the perspective of storyline, there we have again the five aspects. I am not going through those details. Artha Prakriti, how the story is developed, and then the avastha, how the characters, every character develops, and how the leading characters and supporting characters, they culminate so that the story is completed, the situations are well managed. Stories have situations, and situations are taken care of by the characters, and vice versa. So these threefolded aspects are very important and useful. Bharata gives. This is one drop from the mighty ocean of Nāṭya-śāstra. There are many such measures available in Nāṭya-śāstra. And then Indian aesthetics is not merely Sanskrit aesthetics. Many people nowadays, especially the left people, they make one allegation. It is very easy to make an allegation. It is something like hit and run, or spit and run, I should say. They make an allegation. Indian aesthetics is applicable only to so-called Brahminical and so-called Sanskrit writings, and they are bygone. They are of bygone type. They are not applicable to present writings. They are not at all applicable to different languages. We have Tamil aesthetics. We have Kannada aesthetics. Like that, different aesthetics. I should draw a parallel. Just because Isaac Newton was a devout Christian and an Englishman, can his universal law of gravitation become Christian or English? Only in England would his laws work. Only to Christians would his law work. No, it is not so. So also, Indian aesthetics, just because it is written in Sanskrit, it is not restricted to it. Newton wrote his Principia in Latin. That doesn't mean if it is translated to English, it will become corrupt. Only in Latin, as we know from, I should borrow a terminology from Shankara Bhagavad in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, universal realities, they are termed as Vastu Tantra. They will not get corrupted by any spatio-temporal variations, by any human interference or whims and fancy. It will not work according to our whims and fancy. Salt tastes saltish, sugar tastes sweet. Anyway, anything to anyone whose senses are proper. Likewise, Indian aesthetics, accidentally it was written in Sanskrit, not specifically. Nowadays, many people write about Indian culture in English. Will it become non-Indian? No. Likewise, Indian aesthetics in those days, as Sanskrit was the lingua franca across the country. It was a pan-Indian language, and so that was written. Indian aesthetics and the theories were developed and codified in Sanskrit, but they have taken care that every language can take it, and in every language's literature, these features can be applied and analyzed. Rajashekara, a poetician of 10th century and also a playwright and poet, he says a poet should be capable of writing in different languages. If not, he will not be called as Kaviraja, and he declares that I am such a Kaviraja. Kshemendra says a Sanskrit poet should listen to folk songs which are written or composed in regional languages. Giteshu Gathasvata Desha Bhasha Baddheshu. This is what he says in Kavikatthāparana. And Kannada poets since 1000 years, and so also Telugu poets and Hindi poets, they are all following the tenets of Rasa, Dhvani, Auchitya, Vakrata faithfully without any linguistic barrier. They had no such apprehensions and they used to move well with it. And even today, this is possible. Many people have been doing so and have written quite a lot about such things, applying Indian aesthetics to analyze not just classical art forms, classical literature, even to contemporary novels, contemporary plays, poems, travelogues, and whatnot, and even applying them to music, dance, painting, sculpture, many other art forms. And my writings have been well received by well-meaning people, and also they are capable of bringing out the real beauty and estimating them properly. The evaluation, the concept of evaluation is very, very important, and Indian aesthetics is very efficient in doing so. It is unbiased, where merit is the only criterion. This is how in Indian aesthetics many aspects of world art are covered. If at all, something has to be incorporated from other systems of learning, from other systems, other art forms developed, or other aesthetic theories developed in other countries, other cultures. Indian aesthetics is not hesitant to accept. As one example, I can say analysis of character, which has been developed in the West since 18th century or so. It has been very well incorporated by Indian aesthetics, and many Indian writers belonging to different languages from 19th century till now, they have been using these very successfully, and that's why characters of Kalidasa, characters of Valmiki, characters of Vyasa have been very well analyzed and understood and appreciated as well. This is how Indian aesthetics is modest enough to accept positive inputs for its own development, but the crux of it remains universal, and there nothing needs to be supplemented. With this, I think I can conclude. We still have some 15 minutes, I think. Well, one example I shall give for Sandhi, Sandhyanga and other things. You can analyze a short story of Arthur Conan Doyle describing the adventures of Sherlock Holmes, or even a tragedy of Shakespeare, or the Epic of Homer. In the Epic of Homer, Paris, he abducts or elopes with the wife of Menelaus, Helen, and goes to Troy. This is Mukha, action. And then the Greeks, amassing a mighty army of 1,000 ships, they attack Troy. That is Pratibukha. And then war goes on. For 9.5 years, they go and they try to completely cover the city of Troy and want to seal it, but it is not possible. All the efforts go in vain, and that is Garbha. And then Avamarsha, the real war starts. It goes for almost 50 days or so. So many heroes die on either side. That is Aias or Palamedes or Diomedes or Hector. Many people die on both the sides. And ultimately, the city of Troy was burnt and Helen was brought back. That is Nirvana. Sometimes these sandhis, some of the sandhis will not be present. Then it will be a minor work. For example, a farce, a small farce or a small skit may not be having all these features completely. It may just end up with the beginning, action, and completely ending up with the execution, Mukha Sandhi, and then Nirvana Sandhi, like that. Bharata gives all these details. Like that, these features can be safely and efficiently applied to any form of literature. In music also. For example, where the appeal is, for that we have rasa dharmas. We all know that 8 or 9 are the number of established rasa, but it is not necessary that only 8 number of rasas must exist, because we know from the later scholars like Bhoja and others, even a transitory emotion, a vyabhichari bhava, can also rise up to the level of rasa. And that's why Anandavardhana often and often says, instead of rasadhvani, he mentions the word rasadi dhvani. Rasadi means it involves all other fleeting movements of emotions apart from the permanent or the dormant emotions, the sthayi bhava. That's so the numbers are very well planned. Indians are very keen in analyzing, categorizing, listing, enlisting, and subdividing, subdividing. All these things are there. They all show their acumen. They all show their prowess in logic. So they are very well versed in that. But I'm not going to confuse you with all those details. They are mind-boggling. But this much I can say. Not just the 8 rasas, 49 bhavas totally. 8 sthayi bhavas, 33 vyabhichari bhavas, and 8 sattvika bhavas. They can all rise up to the level of rasa. That's so Bhoja opines. in his Saraswati Kantabharana and Shringara Prakasha. And Dhananjaya, another great writer on dramaturgy, he says, any emotion, any fleeting moment of emotion can become appealing. Ramyam, Jugupsitam, Udaram, Athapi Nicham, Ugram, Prasadi Gahanam, Vikratancha Vastu, Yadvapi Avastu, Kavibhavaka Bhavyamanam, Tan Nasti Yenna, Rasabhava Mupaiti Loke. Any emotion, if it is deeply felt and well communicated by an artist, it would become appealing. So, Indian aesthetics says there is nothing, no subject, nothing which cannot become the object of poetry. Everything can become object of poetry, whether it is beautiful or awesome, whether it is sublime or ridiculous, whether it is pleasing or displeasing. Anything and everything can become object of poetry, subject of poetry, and then an imaginative poet with the qualifications of erudition, practice, can always come out with better results, perhaps the best results. Now, these 9 rasas or 8 rasas, they are referential in nature. But how about pure music, which has no lyric, or pure dance, which has no theme, or sometimes painting, which has no theme, just lines and colors? So also the sculptures. In such non-referential arts, how Indian aesthetics can be applied? There we have the solution of rasa dharma, because any emotion will be having one or the other features, dominating features. These are called rasa dharmas. 3 or 4 are called as rasa dharmas: Dhruti, Deepti, Vikasa, and Sankocha. Dhruti means lilting and melting feeling. Deepti means brilliant and enchanting feeling. Vikasa means serene and expansive. Sankocha means contracting and hesitate. These are the 4 basic feelings which we get, basic nature, basic characters of the rasa. Shringara, love, is essentially Dhruti, tender, sweet, appealing, and lilting, while Veera is brilliant and enchanting, while Ascharya or Adbhuta is expansive, or Shanta is serene. At the same time, Bibhatsa, loathsome, is contracting. In this way, these rasadharmas, they can be efficiently used to appreciate abstract or non-referential arts also. Many studies have been conducted in this direction, and that's why I need not go through these things once again, because I have written such things. And in the from IGNCA, a book is going to be published. There, I have been the editor there and have written a long editorial, and there it has been well established. And many other papers have been written in this regard, starting from Bhanudatta and others till Jagannatha. Many poeticians have pondered over these things. Thus, Indian aesthetics is capable of doing so many things properly, and it is very unfortunate that it has been neglected in its own birthplace. It has a legacy, unbroken legacy of not less than 2,500 years, and now it is suffering utter reluctance, utter rejection from the people who declare themselves as artists and writers, and who care and who have no care and who have no bothering for these things, whatever may be. Unless we understand, unless we appreciate with application, we cannot be sure about its results. That's why this informal, brief, and introductory talk would benefit the interested people in taking this discourse further and perpetuate the cause of Indian aesthetics for right reasons. Thank you.